Last year when the Wells Fargo Championship came to our region, it sold out each day at 25,000 attendees and had about 200,000 attendees total for the entire week. The event showed our region's capacity to host large events. While the Wells Fargo Championship was a one-time event for our region, our area has seen several long-standing events recently expand and many new events come to our community. Today we're going to talk with the organizers of 4 of our region's most significant events about the challenges and advantages of hosting events in our community and what our region can do to host more and larger events. So let's meet our panel. To my immediate left is Jackie Bomar, the founder of the Wilmington Boat Show, and she also runs boat shows in Charleston, Savannah, and soon Jacksonville, Florida. Next to her is Dan Brawley, whose official title is Chief Instigating Officer at the Cucamonga Festival. Thank you. Can you hear me now? All right. Did you hear the first 2 introductions? No. Jackie and Dan. Start. They'll get into what they do if you didn't hear it. Next down is Tom Clifford, who's the race director of the Wrightsville Beach Marathon and several other races. Tom is also a high-level athlete himself, having won last year's local Ironman competition and previously finished in the top 20 in the New York City Marathon, although for the record, I did beat him this morning in the race to the bacon. And on the end is Justin Wolf, who's the president of the 2018 Azalea Festival. Justin finished a distant 3rd in the race to the bacon. And let's have Jackie start off. I think Jackie's in a unique position to compare our community to others. So the Wilmington Boat Show is relatively new, but she's involved in running other boat shows in other communities for 17 years. So I'll hand it off to Jackie to get us going.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'll tell you a quick story, but first I want to say I think you have to be a little bit crazy to start a boat show. It's almost like, I like to say it's like giving birth, because you have this horrible labor pain, right? And then you birth this incredible child, and then, but you're in so much pain and you're like, why the heck did I do that? And then months go by and you forget what the labor was like and you do it again. So that is kind of what my life has been like with starting boat shows. I've started, I have 2 in Charleston. One is a convention center show and one is an in-water show. They're very different. I have one in Savannah that's now 16 years old, now going into 17 years actually. We are now kicking off our first Jacksonville in-water boat show. And 3 years ago, we launched the Wilmington Boat Show. And let me just give you a teeny little background about why Wilmington. I have a dear friend in this market who's been in the boating industry forever, and he's a client. And starting about 14 years ago, he hounded me about doing a boat show. You've got to come to Wilmington. You've got to do a boat show here. And I said, okay, well, is there a convention center? No. Is there a marina? No. And I said, all right, well, that's going to take some time. We're going to have to wait a little bit. And so I kept staying in touch, and as I went along, started more boat shows and got into the industry and really had a passion for what I did. And we're a small company, but we're real passionate about our shows, and we try to do quality. And so I'd stay in touch with the folks in Wilmington and got to know people. I got to know, I used to work for SMG that manages the facility here, so I knew they were building a convention center. Of course, I wanted it to be a lot bigger, as many of you probably do, and hopefully they will. But with the start of the Port City Marina, it was a brilliant combination of in-water, convention center space, and also some land space. Really creating a boat show, there's a lot that goes into it. It takes a couple of years to build that infrastructure. It's all about building the relationships. We had to meet the folks from the city, the county. We had to meet, just really start understanding how Wilmington works. So I spent an awful lot of time here. I've got some dear friends here now, folks that were really supportive of us with, at the airport, the college, my friend Tom Barber sitting here in the front. I mean, just people that were so gracious and helpful to build a boat show that would bring people in from other markets. And it's one of those situations where you hope when you build it they will come, but you never know what you're going to get. You spend a lot of money. You take a huge risk because you need to get the support of the boat dealers in town, manufacturers, And then, of course, all of the sponsors are critical, and the people, the attendees, to come in to see the boat show and to be part of it. We were also able to, the great thing is we ran into a lot of kinks, but there was this great start. The first show was unbelievable, even though we came into a lot of situations that it was under construction. Funny story, and then I'll stop. I get a call, of course we're here on Labor Day, this is 2 years ago, I get a call from one of the dealers who's in the show, and he calls and goes, do you know that this is a construction site down here? Have you even been here? And I thought, well, yes, I've been here. Of course, the show's this weekend. So anyway, we were blown away by the results of the first show. We had 15,000 people come in from all over the country. And it was phenomenal, and it was one of those, my staff and I had smiles on our faces the entire time because our exhibitors were thrilled, our sponsors were thrilled, and of course the attendees were buying boats and having fun, and it was a real experience. That set the groundwork for the future, and hopefully we'll be able to expand. We're working with the Battleship Park. We ferry folks back and forth with the folks from the Wilmington Water Tours. So my hope is that we can expand further down the river, across the river, bring in more docks, and just keep growing. So it will be its own Fort Lauderdale Boat Show or Annapolis. And that's my story. I'll be quiet.
Great, thank you. Dan?
Yep. Thanks, Rob, for having us. There are two things that I want to start off with sharing about Cucaloris. I'm hopeful that many of you have been to the Cucaloris Film Festival. It was started in 1994, and for 23 years has been one of the top film festivals in the country. But we've transformed in a couple of ways. One is an external transformation, and the other is more of an internal transformation. The external transformation we launched at last year's festival. And so for 23 years, we put on the Cucaloris Film Festival, and last year we changed that brand to the Cucaloris Festival with three main programs: film, stage, and connect. So the Cucaloris Film Festival hasn't really changed. We show over 200 independent and international films. It's one of the top film festivals in the country. It continues to grow. We bring filmmakers in from all over the world, showcase Wilmington as a potential production location. But the new parts of the festival, Cucaloris Stage. So stage is a combination of music, dance, theater, and comedy. Several of the stage programs are festival favorites, like Dance Loris and Visual Sound Walls. But then we've added to that a larger lineup of music and an almost fringe-like showcase of new original theater. In many ways, in response to what we see happening naturally in Wilmington. There are 32 theater companies in Wilmington, and the Wilson Center obviously expands our ability to put on significant theater. And then maybe the most important part of that new brand and the piece that we think can grow the fastest is Cucaloris Connect. And we launched Cucaloris Connect 3 years ago through a partnership with Tech Mountain, the UNCW Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and the Chamber of Commerce. And Connect is a two-day business conference that explores how technology is transforming the way we work, the way we live, and the way we play. Bringing speakers in from other parts of the country, but also showcasing the most innovative companies here in Wilmington. So please come to this fall's festival and check out that sort of external transformation. And then the other transformation, which might be a little more subtle, and I think was happening long before I even recognized it, there are a number of thought leaders in our local community, like Tom Looney and Brett Martin, and other people who recognized that this was happening before I did. And that is that 15 years ago, you might have thought of Cucaloris as an arts nonprofit that added to the quality of life of Wilmington, and isn't that nice? But in reality, Cucaloris is an economic development agency. And I was doing this work before I knew I was doing this work, but we're really clear about it now, is that Cucaloris is engaged in event-based branding. So we take the quality of place, and then we add a quality of experience, and we try to attract quality people. And that really drives the innovation economy. And you'll notice that traditional economic development agencies are actually getting into our business. I was looking at the list of events that the Chamber of Commerce has. They must have 2 events a week. And WDI, our main downtown development agency, hosts, one of their biggest efforts in the community is a concert on the river. And so event-based economic development is where we're all going to be working. And so, we want you to think of Cucaloris as an economic development agency. And what happens at the festival, so we host 200 events over the course of 5 days in November. And I think of it in many ways like a real estate open house, right? So the short-term impact is that we bring all these people to Wilmington, but the long-term outcome is that we want to convince some of those people to stay here. And so we have to be really careful. New Hanover County is we have the smallest landmass of any county in North Carolina, and so we have to choose our audiences very carefully. So we are going to be very intentional about how we build our audience at Cucaloris over the years, so that as we do attract people to come, think of if your in-laws come and have a really good time on vacation and decide to move here, we want to make sure that we're picking. Maybe you don't want them to move here. We want to make sure that we're attracting the right people first to Cucaloris, but then of course, and selling them on investing in Wilmington. And so we think of Cucaloris last 5 days. Many of the people come for 5 or 6 days to the festival. And what we do is we think of it as a flip in some ways. Your tourist becomes a temporary resident, right? And your local or your resident becomes a temporary tourist. And so we want the quality of the experience that people coming to Cucaloris to be so distinct that they think of themselves, they think of Wilmington as one of their home bases. And if we can convince them to come to Cucaloris for 3 or 4 years in a row, then eventually we can convince them to either relocate their business here or make their next film here. And so that gives you a little idea of where we think we're headed. I think the last time that you invited me here, about 5 years ago, we were talking about the film industry, and one of the questions was, what could Wilmington do to expand its sort of arsenal as a film production location? And I said that we could increase the skyline of downtown Wilmington. It'd be nice if we did that by building hotels. And so thank you for doing that, Rob. And the next step, of course, is to bring the film industry back. And Cucaloris is a byproduct of one of the most powerful traded sector industries in the world. And one of the other very cool things about the film industry is that it's part of the gig economy. It's a misunderstanding of the gig economy is one of the reasons that we lost the film industry, that some of the traditional economic developers in our state were unable to see how people working in the film industry were full-time employees. So if you work in the film industry, you have highly skilled workers who get premium wages, but in the film industry, you happen to have 3 or 4 employers over the course of a year, which is actually a bonus, right? And anybody who lived in Wilmington in the early and mid-'90s literally watched this happen right in front of you, is that if you have highly skilled people, you pay them really well, and you give them a little bit of free time every once in a while to dedicate to their own projects, amazing things happen, right? When highly skilled people have free time and they're really well paid, they can transform your community. And so Cucaloris is a byproduct of that really significant economic activity of the early 90s. And so in many ways, it's not that much of a move off course to think of Cucaloris as an economic development agency, because we literally exist as a result of this significant economic activity that took place. So if we could get that film that's in the back, if you could make that happen.
We'll work on that.
Yeah, we'd be in good shape. So, thank you.
Tom?
Good morning. Hey, thank you all for doing this. This is, first of all, I think this is a very, very big step in Wilmington to be able to have an event like this, that we're talking about events and growing events. The Wrightsville Beach, NHRMC Wrightsville Beach Marathon was started back in 2010. I was 24 years old. And I'll tell you a brief story about how that happened. Google Maps just came out, and I was like, all right, we got to find 26.2 and 13.1 miles in Wilmington. So I just kind of went on there and started drawing maps, and I was like, all right, we're going to go to the north end of Wrightsville Beach, and we're going to the south end of Wrightsville Beach, and then we'll just go up Airlie Road, and we'll cross Military Cutoff, and we're going to finish in Airlie Gardens. And so I went and started, getting this stuff together, and my wife and I weren't married yet, but she was watching me plan for all this and get all this paperwork. And I went in and tried to get the race approved, and they just looked at me like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Do you know that the north end of the Wrightsville Beach, they can't get out. The south end of the people can't get out. And Airlie Road, how are you going to get the residents there? And I just kind of scratched my head. I was like, okay, back to the drawing board. That didn't work. But over time, the people, the Board of Aldermen, Landfall, and the city planners have really come a long way in helping us work on getting a tour of Wilmington, is what I like to call it. And that's what really makes road races successful, especially big half and full marathons, is the tour. And when Rob told me I was speaking at this event, or asked me to speak, I was really excited. So I called Dave McGilvery, who is the Boston Marathon race director. He's directed the Boston Marathon for a long time, and I was privileged enough to meet him. He came to our race several years ago to talk about his set goals, not limits attitude, and his whole story. And he gave me a lot of insight just about what makes a successful race and what made Boston such a historic event, and why hundreds of thousands of people go to Boston, why the streets are lined at the Boston Marathon, and why everybody in Boston shuts down for the event, because they're passionate about it. The whole city is passionate about it. This town, every year we've done the marathon, more and more people are starting to come out and cheer and tailgate on the side of the road if they don't want to run it. Raise your hand here if you've ever participated in a road race. All right, this is my crowd. So those of you who didn't raise your hand, we have some influencing to do tonight.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to talk about and get across here is my goal with the Wrightsville Beach Marathon is to make it a showcase race, so that when runners come here from all over the country, they come to the restaurants and the bars and the places, and the people are engaged. They're like, hey, you ran the race, you got a bib, hey, here's a free beer. Just something like that to welcome these people to our city. 60% of my participants in that race come from out of town. So out of 3,500 participants on average that we get each year, 60% are traveling outside the greater Wilmington area. That's outside of Hampstead and Leland and Wilmington and the surrounding counties. It's mainly Raleigh, Charlotte, Greensboro. And the thing is a lot of those cities now have started their own races. And their city planners and their city governments they're supporting it, they're marketing it. So the more our community, Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, and our area and our businesses are promoting these events, like the events of the planners up here and some of the other events in town, the more we can rally around our marquee events, the more people, that's going to trickle down to the smaller events that maybe don't have as big of a budget to work with. So I'm just excited to open this conversation up. I encourage people to text in questions and share more insight on what Dave had given me about the other events in the country that he puts on, including Boston. And I just appreciate you all being here.
Justin?
Rob, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am excited to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Azalea Festival. I'm sure I recognize a lot of faces, so I've seen a lot of you at our events. The thing that I want to kind of reintroduce is what the festival is outside of the events that you know about. And I'm going to start by reading our mission statement. Our mission for the North Carolina Azalea Festival is to be a nationally recognized as a showcase for our community's rich array of artwork, gardens, history, and culture through recreational, educational, and family-oriented events. The festival encourages volunteerism and civic participation as it contributes to the region's economy and promotes the unique qualities of Wilmington's river-to-the-sea community. And the reason I read that is all of us up here have a same running theme. Wilmington has a unique sense of place. We are all here because we want to live here. And I will say that all these events contribute to that fabric. The Azalea Festival this year is 71 years old. For a community event to last 71 years is unique. We are the largest event of our kind in the state. We also reside in the smallest county in the state. That doesn't happen by accident. The board, which I have 6 members that serve with me, we're a laddered board, have a plan in place. 2011, we had an economic impact study that was done by UNCW. We interviewed 2,000 festival attendees and said, what are your spending habits? Where are you from? All the things what do you do with the festival? That number came in at $50 million, 51, but who's counting? The big change that we made out of that economic impact study in 2013, our biggest events that we do every year are concerts. We went from Trask Coliseum, where we could sell 3,500 tickets, to a venue right over here, outside, that we could have a capacity of 10,000. Not only that, we added an additional night of shows. So the festival impact was $50 million 7 years ago. I would venture to say that it's $60 to $65 million easily now. We have tried to book people in hotels, bands for the parade, all the events that we do, and we can't even get hotel rooms. We have to send them across the bridge in Leland. So the impact that we have, that we do every single year, is massive. I think one of the things that we take for granted is we know the festival. It's been here forever. What I would encourage you, and what I hope today to talk about, is some of the things that you may not know about the festival. Everybody has their favorite events, and I know Friday, April 13th, there will be no business done in Wilmington. It'll all be done at Airlie Gardens.
We will still have our daily email update, though. So.
Yeah. I know that that's one of the favorite events in town, but there are so many other things that we do that I hope I get a chance to talk about today that have an impact that you may not see. But to answer your question, 10,000 people per night at the concert is what we'd love to have. Street fair during the 3 days of the street fair that's on Water and Front Street, we get between 90 and 125,000 people through there. For the parade, we have about 30,000. Paid attendees to events are going to be between around 5,000 if we total them all up. So.
Great, thank you. By the way, Sandy, I think Dan's thing about being a temporary resident or temporary tourist might qualify under the space-time continuum discussion. So he's in the running for the book. So let's get going. Talking first about event venues. I think that's probably the starting point for a lot of these events. And as some of the panelists have already talked about, that's changed for the better in recent years. So whoever wants to jump in first, what do you think of the state of event venues in our community now, and what's needed to improve it?
I would love to address that. This is an unbelievable marina. Port City Marina is unbelievable and one of the finest in the country. So for me, in this convention center, even though it's small, Frida, if you're out there, it is beautiful, and I have been so impressed with the Riverwalk, the flow, having the Battleship Park across the way. We need more space in order for this show to grow and grow and grow. I've met with, last year, the folks from River Bluffs, way down river. There's so much opportunity to grow this show, but we need just to keep the footprint going bigger and bigger and bring in docks and do different things. But I will say you have a world-class marina right here. And so you should be very, very proud of that, and Chuck Schoninger's work to bring that here. It's people who come to boat shows and go to them all over the country, and when they come to this show, they're impressed. So I just want to say that is kudos to the city for that. It's impressive.
Yeah, I can share that for many years, the venue landscape in Wilmington remained relatively the same, and the number of hotels remained relatively the same. So the timing was really perfect for Cucaloris when people in the business community approached us 3 years ago about launching Cucaloris Connect, that for the first time, there were many more hotel rooms in downtown Wilmington, and the venue landscape had just started to change. But I think more importantly for us is that the quality of place in Wilmington, North Carolina has given Cucaloris an advantage, nationally and internationally, that just is priceless. It's the #1 criteria for Fortune 500 companies when they look to expand or relocate is quality of place. And so what is that? It's the natural resources we have, so the Cape Fear River and some of the best beaches in the world. And so when filmmakers come from all over the world and they get a hotel room at the Hilton and their window looks out over the Cape Fear River, that's something that just can't be duplicated. It adds to the quality of the experience that they have when they come to Wilmington. And then the built environment. So some of those things are newer. The Wilson Center is newer. But the inventory of historic spaces in Wilmington, again, it is the perfect laboratory for what we do at Cucaloris. And what we're doing is we're creating a temporary community. So that's those, when the tourists become part-time residents and when residents become, tourists for a week, what we're doing is creating a temporary community of people who create their own identity for 5 days in Wilmington. And that's what creates that very specific experience that we're trying to deliver. And so when we look at Wilmington as a venue, as the larger venue, we want to enhance the quality of place. We want to take that quality of place and make it look even better, right? So just like that real estate open house, you want that kitchen to look even better than it's going to look when somebody lives there and their stuff's all over the place. You're making it look absolutely perfect. And so that's what we think of when we think of Wilmington, is what can we do to make Wilmington look absolutely perfect. So, and can we convince all of our visitors to go to those places that make this special, right? We want them to be inside of Thalian Hall. We want them to go to Manna and Pinpoint and Platypus and Nome. We want them to experience the things that make Wilmington special and unique. And so we're really happy with the venue landscape. A little more stability sometimes would be nice. Wilmington would greatly benefit from a really good indoor music venue. We've struggled in recent years. We're going to be booking more music at Cucaloris, but the loss of venues like the Soapbox and the many different businesses that have been located in the building that used to be the Manor Theater on Market Street between 2nd and 3rd. So there is room for improvement. And as we look at the future of Cucaloris, we hope to be using every square inch of this building for a full week within the next 5 years. We hope within the next 5 years that all the events at the Wilson Center, the week of Cucaloris, will be part of the festival, because we want to be able to showcase the entire sort of offering that Wilmington has for those 5 days.
Good.
So my venue is a little different. It's 26 miles long, so it's not one location. So we have a lot of entities that have to approve our race to make it the scenic, full community aspect tour race that we want. Wrightsville Beach, Landfall, Mayfair, UNCW, Autumn Hall, the city of Wilmington. So that's just a few of them. The DOT, of course. We finish our race at UNCW's Bernie Center. That's where the expo is located. It's a great finish line. All the runners run down Chancellor's Walk, and last year was our first year doing that. And we got amazing feedback. People were able to run from the beach around Landfall and Airlie Road, which is, as we all know, beautiful in the spring. Last year, all the azaleas were blooming. And then they finish down UNCW's Chancellor's Walk, and they have this amazing finish line with a clock finish and get to go into the Bernie Center afterwards for their food and beer and post-race refreshments. So being able to work with UNCW and having them be more engaged in our race has been amazing. The obstacles that we deal with, of course, are 9 different entities being on the same page and it working well into the road race calendar. Because there are so many races, you have to consider the regional race scene from marathons and half marathons. This year, I got stuck being on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, which is the same weekend as a large, very successful race up in Cary on the Tobacco Trail. It's not my first choice. The reason we got pushed out of that is, number one, no long-term arrangements. We have to go year to year with our arrangements. There's a Science Olympiad, there's a triathlon, there's a Board of Governors meeting at UNCW, and that's the part of being on campus, is I totally respect and understand that. But the long-term arrangement, when you're talking about trying to bring a successful marathon and half marathon, which is a pinnacle event around the country, you want to be able to have some security long-term, and that's what I think we're lacking here in Wilmington, is that those long-term contracts and arrangements with areas of our town.
So venues, yeah, we have significant challenges with that every year. When we decided to put the concerts outside, and I'm going to harp on the concerts because it's our most visible public events. When we decided to put the concerts outside, we looked for places, that we could have it on an annual basis, and we were able to partner with Cape Fear Community College. So we want to thank them publicly for their support and continued support. But that building a concert venue that is a parking lot 90% of the year is a significant expense and challenge that we put on every year. To run 2 or 3 generators with backup generators in case something happens, mobile stages, all the logistics that go into that are not cheap. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So if we could have those type of venues for big public events to do things, that would be significant. The other thing that we see the festival doing is growing, and not just a Wilmington or New Hanover County event. We have downtown basically on lockdown for 3 days. And it's a big inconvenience for a lot of people. So I think we need to have the ability to think outside the box and see where we can put other events throughout the 3-county area, so it's not just a burden on New Hanover County, because we know that New Hanover County and Wilmington provides a significant support for us. If we share those resources, the burden becomes less on all the things that are done here. So we have to think strategically going forward, and the boards after me are going to be the ones that make those decisions, and I'll be a past president just to get to enjoy everything like y'all.
Okay. Please, we'll get to questions in a minute, so please text them in if you have a question you want to ask. I want to dig in a little more on I think what Dan and Justin, in terms of the music venues. And getting ready for this, talking to Dan, it was interesting to hear, maybe you could share, Dan, a little bit about how the lack of music venues or sustainability of some venues basically shaped, Kookalora Stage and how you're expanding. So I would think about, explain that, but then what do you all think is a long-term solution in terms of having a more permanent or several permanent music venues?
Yeah, well, the evolution of Kookalora Stage was part of an assessment that we did of looking at the, organically evolving, activities in the community, and with 32 theater companies, with a great comedy club, and with several other places presenting comedy on a weekly basis. We felt like being broad and launching Kookalora Stage to include theater, comedy, music, and dance was really a good strategy. And it's also very distinctly Wilmington, so a lot of people have compared the transformation that we're undertaking to South by Southwest. I mean, Austin, Texas is one of the music capitals of the country. And so, we felt like with Kookalora, especially to be distinct and to be specific to Wilmington, that Kookalora Stage really put us in the best position for the future. Now, there are some good music venues. Our opening night event at Kookalora this year will be at the Brooklyn Arts Center, and we're working with Merge Records, one of the best indie record labels in North Carolina. And so hopefully we can influence that, right? And I guess that's the place where, in addition to responding to what's happening in Wilmington, Kookalora, we want to be the place where the conversation happens that points towards what's going to happen in Wilmington in 10 years. To give you an idea of how that plays out, if you were at Kookalora in 2007, we had a young actress named Greta Gerwig who was here in Wilmington for 5 days. She stayed at a B&B on 7th Street and hung out. Nobody knew who she was. But if you watch the Oscars this Sunday night, her first feature film as a director, in my opinion, was the best film of the year and should have won an Oscar. But anyway, so we do want, Kookalora is very intentional about creating a container where there's a conversation about what's going to happen in the future. And so we do both those things, right? We're responding to what's already happening in the community. And as we do that, we create a conversation that should point us in the direction where we're going, both culturally and economically. That's where Connect is the place where we want everybody in this community to understand that in order to be part of that conversation, in order to be part of the visioning for the future of our economic identity, that's what Connect, contains. And so hopefully we can influence, the venue landscape in Wilmington, and hopefully with many events, we'll start to create the economic conditions that make, music venues sustainable. But Wilmington is a tough location, right? I was talking to Dave Nathans and Rich Leader, who run the Brooklyn Arts Center, the other day, and they book music on a pretty regular basis, and they said their booker laughed at them, recently and said, yeah, there are A cities and B cities for music, right? And Wilmington is a C-. We're not on the way from one place to the other. Half of our potential audience are fish. So it takes a really special combination of like a band that really wants to be here and a promoter who's really talented to pull that off. And so hopefully we can influence that a little bit, improve the conditions by hosting one of the best, festivals in the world. My hope is that within the next 5 to 10 years that those smaller, more grassroots venues will pop back up, that something like the Soapbox will reappear on the landscape. But that takes that takes a small business owner who's really passionate, who really is willing to put, blood, sweat, and tears into making something like that successful.
Dan really said it. Music is tough in Wilmington. Routing, he touched on routing, and to give some color to that, when national headline concerts are put together and tours are put together, they're put together by a couple of different agencies. Live Nation's one of them, AEG, there's a few smaller players. But what they'll do for an artist is buy dates. So they buy all these dates, and they say, okay, where are our venues that we control that we can put concerts on in? And for us, we have a relationship with Live Nation. And when we book our national concerts, the venues that we have is considered a shed or a beat-down venue because it's created. And I hear a lot of feedback, oh, Justin, I'd love to see Jimmy Buffett. Listen, I would love to have Jimmy Buffett right out there. The problem is the people that want to see Jimmy Buffett here won't buy the tickets for what we have to sell them for. Period. Last year, we had Jason Derulo here. Jason had 2 top 10 Billboard songs in the top 10 the week he was here. And we could not get people to show up. Music is difficult, especially when you are creating a music scene. When we said we want to take concerts outside, and we went to all the powers that be, you can't do that. There's no way that'll work. Well, that was my first year on the board, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be really a challenge. 6 years later, we're the only entity that has been able to pull it off consistently of having those national headline concerts come through Wilmington. I mean, if you would have said that we had Snoop Dogg come to Wilmington, people would have looked at you like I was crazy 5 years ago. And the people that was our highest selling ticket concert that we've done. Chase Rice was here. Chase is a North Carolina guy, friends with Connor Barth, who is from here. The only reason that we got in the door on that concert and got Chase to come here is because Connor was from Wilmington. So to pull off music on a consistent basis, we have to change the habits of everybody in the Tri-County area. Instead of driving to Raleigh, instead of driving to Charlotte, instead of driving to Columbia, South Carolina, or Myrtle or Virginia Beach, is to have that public ticket buying audience keep their dollars here. And to be consistent with that it's going to be an uphill battle, and we have to do things, you have to do things the right way consistently, and it's an ongoing challenge of changing that mentality that we're starting to get a little bit of traction. And I will say this, it's interesting to us, since we went outside and did those concerts, we had sponsors that heard not about the festival, they heard about the concert series and said, oh, there's something else that you guys do. They wanted to be a sponsor because of the concerts. They didn't really know about the rich history, 71 years, any of those other things. They heard about the concerts first. And I think that's really important to open the door to have a bigger conversation. Okay, this is what we do to create our unique sense of place, and we're a part of that. But the entryway is those national things that gain headlines everywhere. I mean, who wouldn't want to come to the beach and see 38 Special? It's only $23. Friday, April 13th. Tom's going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going for sure. 38 Special, 100%, and Ludacris.
There you go.
But to go off of what Justin said, he's exactly right. You can't continue to raise costs for your tickets or for the race entries and expect the same people to come here. We want to make a better race just like they want to make a better Azalea Fest, or just like he wants to make a better Cucaloris Festival. But we can't raise the costs because 2 hours away, there's another race next week that's 10 or 15 bucks cheaper. And they can just roll out of bed and go to that race. So how do we get Wilmington? We have a gem here. Wrightsville Beach, downtown, historic downtown people. It's still a secret, like a hidden secret. Everybody in Wilmington knows how great it is, but to get people that are in southern Ohio and Michigan and the Midwest to come down here when they got basically a nor'easter and it's going to be 65 degrees here all next week, to come down and run, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for they call it in the race world, and I hate this name, but they call it a racecation. Just,
That doesn't sound fun.
but that term exists, and I can't raise prices, but my budget's almost $500,000, to put the race on, and so like I have to rely every year and get stressed out and go, oh my God, who's going to sign up? Or what race is going to have a windy day so that they decide to come to ours because they had a bad race? So how do you fix that? You fix it, well, just like Justin said, sponsorships, companies in town that are also reaping the benefits of the thousands of people who are coming here. How can they get on board? How can they get engaged? Even if they don't have the marketing dollars to say, hey, we're going to do a $2,000 sponsorship for your race, they can help out through donation of product or even marketing itself and making it a bigger deal than what it is. We all know that the media and the way our town reacts to things set the tone for how everybody else is going to react. So if the media talks about it being an inconvenience, then everybody's going to think it's an inconvenience. But if there's positive stories, like New Hanover Regional Medical Center this year is talking about a fella who's running the race who just got out of cardiac rehab, who's now running his first half marathon after having a heart attack. And then people realize that, well, I can do that. If that guy can do that, I can do that. And then that inspires a community, and all of a sudden now you have more people doing it. And I know we're talking about venues, and I sort of just got off a little bit, but it's the same kind of thing about raising prices, engaging sponsors, and having a vision for the future instead of our good old ways.
I was just going to say also that really sponsorship is critical to all of our events, I think, and the impact of what they get from it is so important. We were able to secure Yamaha Corporation for the boat show for the second year and now third year and as our presenting sponsor, and they are the creme de la creme in the boating industry of a sponsor, but we also really rely on local and regional sponsors because that way we can market the boat show even further out and put Wilmington and this area on the map even more. So it's pretty important, I think.
Let's take some questions from the audience. First, table 19, Lori.
Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lori Plant with CCI Consulting. I've enjoyed the conversation. I've enjoyed listening about sponsorships and especially hearing how many people come to all of these events from outside the region. Looking at it from the guest perspective, what's their wow when they come to Wilmington? And what's the wow about, I want to be back next year?
That's a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all talked about some of the obvious factors is that we have some of the most significant natural resources, a combination of natural resources you can't find anywhere else in the world. I mean, I could be in my office in downtown Wilmington, and in 20 minutes I could be in the Atlantic Ocean. That's unheard of anywhere else in the world. That special combination of the natural resources that are here. For us, at the film festival, we bring filmmakers from all over the world, and I'm driving down Market Street, and we go past Carolina Apartments, and they discover that Blue Velvet was made in Wilmington, and so, but the wow that people are looking for, and this is how events have changed and entertainment has changed from the 20th century to the 21st century. In the 20th century, people wanted to escape reality. They worked hard, 9-to-5 jobs, and so they wanted to get away and sit back and just watch something happen in front of them, and they were very passive. A 21st century entertainment, people want enhanced reality. They want you to explode reality and spin it around. They want to be actively engaged in all the experiences that they're taking part in. So that's why the marathon is great, right? That's an active experience of Wilmington. And we are always exploring that at Cucaloris. We have a whole showcase of virtual reality, which is really exciting. But a good example at Cucaloris of that difference, and this is how you create that wow. For many years, we held a locations tour for Blue Velvet. Filmmakers wanted to tour around and see all the buildings where Blue Velvet was shot in Wilmington. It was like, what a novel thing. We can go look at, where the Yellow Man, where his office was. And 5 years ago, we discovered that was a little bit tired. People don't want passive entertainment. They want to be actively engaged in whatever activity it is that they're doing. And so we now do this thing called the Bus to Lumberton. The town in Blue Velvet is called Lumberton. And we commission an artist every year who creates a site-specific interactive experience. So for example, last year, Josephine Decker, one of the most talented American film directors, was the artist that we commissioned. And she organized a 5K run throughout downtown Wilmington where you ran past all of the locations. So we ran past Carolina Apartments. We ran past, the restaurant that's now Savora's was a location for Blue Velvet. And then at each of those locations, there was something that you could do. Like we ran up to Wallace Park and there was like a little scavenger hunt. We ran past Jock Brandis' shop and ran right in there, and he told a story about being on the set of Blue Velvet and working on Blue Velvet. And so those are the kinds of wow experiences that we have to deliver as event organizers now, is that no longer is it passive entertainment. People want to be up and moving and have their hands on whatever it is they're doing, and that's how we can take this incredible quality of place and then convert it into what I would call a quality of experience. And that's what will bring people back over and over again. Because our industry is super saturated. The event industry is absolutely incredible. The film industry, for example, there were 60 film festivals in 1994 when Cucaloris started. Today there are over 3,000. So in order to deliver the wow experience, in order to be significantly different in a crowded market, you really have to do something really special. And we're lucky that we have all those ingredients here, but it does take a lot of coordination in order for those things to really work.
Right on top of what he just said was that the wow factor has to come from Wilmington, what we all know as our city. It can't come from us as the event planner, because we're busy directing the race itself and making sure the runners go the right way or the people do the right thing. I mean, I talked to these guys beforehand, and it's so much work to put on the event. How can the community create the wow that we all know? The boat tours. Like when you go to Boston, the BAA is not putting on the duck tours. The duck tour company is putting on the duck tours. And everybody knows when you go to Boston, you're going to go take a duck tour. You have to do it. It's just a cool, really, tour of Boston. So for us, it's on race morning, it's like Dockside's an awesome place to be. We all know Dockside. We all go there for the Azalea Festival. So Dockside, why not have a little...
Some of us get to go, not me.
Not this year, at least. So, we all go to Dockside. It's like the morning of the marathon. If you're not running, why not go to Dockside and watch the race and get some music going, have a beer? And everybody afterwards is going to go to Dockside because it's St. Patrick's Day. I mean, those are the kind of things that have to happen behind the scenes that other people have to step up and do for these festivals or events. And I think that when that starts to happen, like, oh, such and such event just happened this weekend, we got to put some signs out and welcome the runners or welcome the people for the Azalea Festival. And the more, again, the community gets engaged in the big events, the marquee events, the more people are going to return because they're going to get the Wilmington experience.
Yeah.
I think our wow factor is really easy. We are a celebration of spring. People in the Northeast have moved down here to our region. People from the Midwest have moved down here from our region. They get to see spring when they're calling home to their kids, cousins, whoever. It's 65 degrees. We have azaleas blooming. Everything is in bloom, and it's a celebration of what living in our place is. And we have that old tradition that goes back to when Wilmington was a sleepy little coastal town that we try and preserve in everything that we do. I mean, the sense of wow is the pageantry. If you've never been to the ribbon cutting, to see 143 Cape Fear Garden Club azalea bells parade in, you have missed it. It is a sight to behold. And we try and do that with everything that we do. And it's improving that sense of wow every year and making our event a little bit better every year. in everything that we do. And that's why we constantly move venues for our black tie event and try and make all those touches that our sponsors expect from us, make it a little bit better each and every single year so that they do walk in and say, wow, I can't believe they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, for the boat show, I'll say that what was so critical, a downtown location, still a lot under construction the first year, was how easy it was. We heard comments from people who said the flow was so great and the city was so walkable, the people were so friendly, the restaurants were awesome, the shopping, the hotels, the community really embraced us and had a sense of pride. The airport was tremendous as our first year presenting sponsor. We had welcome banners at the airport. So everything that our sponsors can do and the community could do, like they said, to welcome people who are coming in from outside the market. But also, we had people who lived in Wilmington forever who came down to this boat show downtown. They could not believe it. They said to me, we've never even been down here. This is crazy. It's so vibrant. It's amazing. And then to have the restaurants going and I mean, just all the crowds on the docks. And it was, I mean, I think the safety too is important. Making sure the streets are safe and clean and just all the things that make, you know, you want to bring in 15,000 people from outside the market and it's important. But the friendliness of this community, you know, I work in Savannah markets in Charleston. Jacksonville's new for us and now in here, and they all have their own personalities. They all have their own quirks. But they're all really amazing Southern friendly cities. And I will say this is probably my favorite to the point of I almost bought a house here, and then I had to tell my husband. He didn't like that idea. No. But
one of the things that we do at Cucaloris is that we match filmmakers with local residents, and so about 50 of the filmmakers who come to Cucaloris stay in your homes. My mom hosts a filmmaker every year. Yeah. That's the best. It's like the filmmaker will post on Facebook, hey, you won't believe it, but I stayed with the director of the festival's mom.
That's cute.
And that's again what distinguishes, right? And so the fact that 50 filmmakers are staying in your homes, in your guest bedrooms, and in your garage apartment, all of a sudden that experience becomes so authentic, right? And again, they never forget the people that they meet when they get to have really, really meaningful connections with people. And that's one of the things that we want to be careful with Cucaloris about how big it gets, because it's really hard to have a meaningful connection in a room where there are 200,000 people. So when I go to film festivals all over the country, you go to parties and everybody from the community comes out and they all know each other. And then there are 15 people in the corner who look really awkward. And those are the filmmakers, right? And so we want that to be what the whole room looks like, right? So there's an integration of that experience of being hospitable and being welcoming, so that experience that these people have for their first time in this city is really special and unique.
It's like next question, table 44, Margie.
Good morning. I'm Margie Herring with Fluent PR, and I'm struck by the fact that each of these very successful events is cultivating a distinctly different audience, but you share in your delight of Wilmington. Maybe to follow up on Lori's question, she asked about getting people to come back next year, is looking to get people to come back to the next event and considering a way that you can cross-promote among one another and encourage people to see what other rich opportunities people have to come back and enjoy Wilmington after enjoying your event.
Well,
great, I'm in.
I literally, when these guys were just talking, I was thinking the same thing on how we can cross-promote events so that each different audience is seeing each other's event. Obviously, there's tons of events, so you could be posting on something every week. And every event has their own stipulations on what they can and can't do. But I mean, I'm definitely open to it. And just like we're open to, more businesses getting involved, because as we all said, like I know our event, and when I look at the budget, like without sponsorships, can't happen.
Right.
Cannot happen. Like financially, it would be a loss. So with our sponsors, because we can do it, We've donated over $320,000 to charity over the last 8 years of the race. So, it's been good. And we had our title sponsor for 8 years left, and New Hanover Regional Medical Center stepped up, and they're now the next 3 years, and they're a local vibe, and they're bringing the community together. So anything we can do to cross-promote I'm definitely open to.
Well, and it's important for us. So if we win, if we convince people running technology businesses, traded sector employers to move to Wilmington, they're going to want an event every week of the year, right? And so if we achieve that goal, then it's really important that all these events are well cultivated and unique and stand out in the marketplace. And so we've been, in fact, Cucaloris has been very active in encouraging other people to start film festivals. We want to see that event market be really thriving in Wilmington, and all the reasons that Cucaloris is successful make this a great place for a number of different events to be successful. It's great that we all have different audiences because it is hard to get, we aren't going to get somebody to come back, 3 weeks in a row. And so, people who are coming to the boat show, maybe there's a few of those folks who might want to come to the film festival, but yeah, come on. Yeah.
Well, let's also have Kim Huffman's here, who's the head of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Maybe, Kim, if you could address how do we promote the area in general for tourists, and is a part of it, or are you looking at part of it being promoting specific events?
Well, what we do is we work with the event organizers, and we've worked with each of them up there on the stage, and we look at the signature events, especially the bigger events, and we promote it through, of course, our website, through our promotional materials, but social media has become such a big key for us as well, that we like to be able to feature these events whenever they're coming up through our Facebook post and, Twitter accounts and those types of things, working with them and getting the information out. So we're hopefully, to Margie's point, being able to cross-promote these so that when someone comes to one of these events, they're able to see, wow, well, look, in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever, you've got this coming up and that type of thing. So we spend a lot of time working with them, making sure the word's out on these on our calendar, and again, through social media and through our media efforts as well.
Next question is Table 8. Amy? Do you have a mic there?
Hi, thank you. Going back to the discussion about venues and the need for additional venues and additional infrastructure, the city is investing $20 million in North Waterfront Park as a result of the voter-approved 2016 Parks Bond. And with that, Live Nation is investing over $2 million in that park to build a first-class performance venue with a 7,500 audience capacity. So we hear you loud and clear, and the city's working to accommodate your needs. And I'd be curious to hear from the event organizers what amenities are most important to you to see in that park so that we can provide it as an additional venue for your events.
I guess everybody's going to look at me. Hey, Amy. We'd love to hear more about it. We have been the only ones to put on concerts downtown, and we don't know anything about it. So we'd love to hear more about what the plans are.
I have a question about, I know, Amy, we had talked about putting boats on the park, and there were some problems with that at one point. Is it available to put soft, like 10 by 10 exhibits there as well to continue the show further down?
We're still in schematic design with the park, but right now Live Nation has indicated that they need space, hardscape space for at least 70 points of sales during large-scale events. So I think that there will be some significant hard space that would be available for you to use. Additionally, There's a city-owned right-of-way that will border the park on the east side, so there will be an additional road, and so that'll be another place in close proximity to the marina and here at the convention center that would be usable.
Great. Would that be 1, 2, 3 years down? Because I'm thinking, I'm always looking, for the next 2 or 3 years down to know what my growth plan is.
We hope to have the first bid package out for construction this fall, and would be looking at about a year timeline for construction. So we're working hard at it.
Great, thank you.
Tom?
This isn't a physical infrastructure thing. It's more of a long-term planning thing. Nurturing existing events and making sure that the ones that are successful are taken care of. I've worked on staff for the Carousel Center Beer Fest, and we've used the park, and it's been great. It's a great location, great venue. One of the concerns was, all right, you have Live Nation coming in. How does that festival play into that, and will we be able to get long-term agreements so that something like that, or something like the Azalea Festival, which I'm sure would always be able to do that, but get a long-term agreement. It's the same thing for our race, and that's the same, I think that's the thing that these guys, we've all talked about before, is that every year it's like you're starting from scratch. Even though we have a history of a successful event, you have to go and find the date and make sure everybody's lined up. And so how do we get more security long-term so we can plan long-term?
Oh, two things. Number one, when you made that point before about the inability for long-term planning, I think you had said that there was a conflict with the date with UNCW. I made a note of that because you're exactly right. I think that is something that we need to look at. I know the city is only one entity that you work with, but to the extent that the city can improve its processes to give you some long-term stability, we want to be able to do that. We're actually in the process of reviewing and revising our special event procedures, so we'll take that into account. And it's very important for the city to maintain its character and its long-term events, and we've incorporated that into our agreement with Live Nation, that we have dates available for our existing civic events to take place in that park. We absolutely want to see that stay. The Live Nation, that type of corporate entity scares some people, but I'll go back to some points that you all made in that, we've been told by Live Nation as well as other event promoters that there's a missing market in Wilmington, that these acts go to Charlotte and Raleigh and they want a third leg on the coast somewhere, but there's not an event that can support them. And it is incredibly difficult and expensive for a Azalea Festival to have to create this temporary production, and thus the high ticket prices. And by having a fixed performance venue in place, those production costs go down. So it's a mix of making sure we take care of our existing local festivals, but having that economic development for new events to come in.
Well, let's talk. We've got about 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes left. I'm going to get to a couple other topics. So we haven't really talked about hotels and parking yet. So obviously we've seen a lot of new hotels downtown and several more coming, which has made a difference. But how does that play in now with the
Yeah, I mean, it's the reason that I was so excited about launching Cucaloris Connect, and really the underlying reason for the transformation happening at Cucaloris is that there are literally more mattresses in downtown Wilmington. From when Cucaloris started in 1994 to about 3 years ago, the number of rooms that were available to us remained relatively constant. And so I travel all over the country and all over the world. I go to about 15 festivals and conferences a year. And if I can't find a hotel room or an Airbnb in close proximity to the venues, I don't go, because I don't want to spend an hour every day in traffic in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to be really close to what I'm doing. I want to be able to walk. And so for us, the increase in the number of hotel rooms has sort of encouraged us to kind of shift into high gear and start thinking about growth. We want to be really careful about that growth. We don't want to fill the space, with people who aren't going to have a long-term connection to our city and who can't contribute to the cultural and economic sort of health and growth of the city in the right ways. And again, it's almost like with a surgeon's precision, we have to be careful about who we attract to this community, partly because some of our assets are very fragile, but because we want to build a very specific kind of city. And that opportunity is really special here in the number of hotel rooms. We hope it continues to grow. So we're real happy with that recent development. We think that it creates opportunities for events like Cucaloris, and we're really hopeful that as this previous conversation, a little bit about cultivating homegrown events, we really will need your support, so that we can compete with the companies that come from out of the market and take our money out of the market, right? So, and that I think is really important.
Tom?
For hotels and parking, just a brief logistics of how we have to do it. Not all of our participants can't park at Wrightsville Beach, and not all of them can park at UNCW. Every parking lot that we secure at UNCW, we have to pay for. And that's what the rules are on campus right now, is to secure those parking lots. We have to pay for them and reserve them. So we have to have shuttles. We've spent about $8,000 in shuttles in the morning to get participants to the beach in 90 minutes from UNCW, and then hope the rest of them either get dropped off or park there, because we have some parking. We've rented the Blue Water parking lot, and they've been very generous and given us their parking lot for the morning. But when it comes to hotels, if you want people to stay there, how can you, and we've got great hotel sponsors, by the way. Like a lot of them do come on board, but it would be amazing if each hotel could invest a little bit in a shuttle to come to take care of people that go to and from their hotel rooms. Like, hey, we're going to pick you up, we're going to drop you off at the start line. That's what influences people to come here more, to have easy transportation from the shuttles. I know when I moved here 12 years ago, I didn't understand this town, how to drive around here. I figured it out by running. I just started running and figuring, oh, this road connects here, and this road changes names like 3 times. Oleander's military cutoff and whatever. Same thing. So when you're trying to explain that to an out-of-town person, they don't get it. Like, by the way, you come on an Oleander, but if you turn right, it's military cutoff. If you turn left, it's Oleander. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just the way the town's structured, and that's fine. But the more people that live here, that understand traffic systems and want to invest when there's a big event and help out by saying, hey, we'll take you to and from places, and this is where the best place to park is, man, that really helps, and that really gives us a hometown feel.
Jackie?
Yeah, I think for us, we've been really blessed with the Battleship Park has been fabulous for us, because we've been able to actually use the Wilmington water tours to ferry people back and forth, and working with our relationship with the Battleship Park has been tremendous in the Cape Fear Community College's lots. But I think it's critical for parking in downtown. And in Charleston, I have this horrible situation in downtown Charleston, because it's so crowded now that I can't even start my boat show until after people get out of work on Friday at 5. And I have to share parking. I have to pick dates against when the River Dogs aren't at their stadium playing their baseball game, because I have to have their lot. And so it's a nightmare. So Wilmington is much easier. And I think it's very critical that that we always keep looking. I just found out about the spots that are being taken up from the hotel, which is great from the convention center, but it takes away from other people's events. So we have to be creative and always looking at other opportunities. As far as the hotels go, I am so thrilled about these beautiful new hotels, especially right downtown and walking distance to the venues where the boat show is going to be. And I think that's an opportunity for us to host additional events, expand the show perhaps into the Embassy Suites and other venues, do specialty events along with during the show. Mm-hmm. So I'm thrilled to see that.
We've got time for one more question, and I didn't warn the panelists about this, so they may have to think for a minute, but what is one thing you would like to see happen here that would help you expand your events and other events in our region?
I'll go first. I think the one of the things that the residents of Wilmington need to understand is the festival isn't just the things that you see. The festival touches a lot of people in many different ways. I will tell people this because it's the truth. My favorite day of the things we do is something that 99% of Wilmington doesn't see. It's Thursday of festival week. We go to the school, we go to Women's and Children's Hospital, the Betty Cameron Women's and Children's Hospital at New Hampshire Regional Medical Center, and we go to the Brigade Boys and Girls Club. Those populations, some of them, have nothing else to do with the festival. The only thing that they see is police car escort in and us spending some time with them. It is the most rewarding thing that we do every single year. And nobody knows about it. Did you know also, since we're on that topic, we had a 70th North Carolina Azalea Festival Scholarship Pageant this past Saturday. 70 years. We are the second biggest scholarship behind Miss North Carolina in the state. Miss North Carolina competes for Miss USA. Wouldn't it be great if we had the ability to fund that winner a full ride to college? What an impact that would be. Oh, why are you in college? I won the North Carolina Azalea Festival Scholarship Pageant. They're paying for all my college. That takes buy-in from all of us. Those kind of events that you don't see, I think, have just as much impact as the Airly Luncheon, as the concerts, as all the other things that we do. So if you don't appreciate, don't want to go to those, guess what? We have lots of other things that you can be a part of. And we ask you to come to us. Please join us, be a part of it.
Yeah, over the last 9 years, a really positive thing I would say is that our city leaders and people who work for the Parks and Rec and everybody, and our city traffic system has been wonderful in helping us create that tour I was talking about, that tour of Wilmington. So from Amy and RT, and I know you guys are out there, really has been great and much improved over the years. I would think there's a lot of the stuff that Azalea Fest was talking about, but for us, a marathon and a half marathon and the events that go along with it, they definitely relate to life a lot in general and gives people an opportunity to overcome an obstacle that may be related to the race itself from a personal level or overcoming for a friend. And I was talking to a gentleman from Raleigh just before this, and he just reminded me that people come down to this race to fight for somebody else. They're either running for them, somebody who's dying of a disease, or somebody who can't do it anymore. And so that's part of the race that you don't see either. A lot of times you're driving down the road and you see these massive runners running in between cone-closed road, and you're like, I can't get to work, you know. But it's more than that. And so what I'd like to see from Wilmington in general is I would like to see our area make it more than just a race, make it an experience for the people coming, for the 1,000 volunteers that are part of the race as well. So you have 1,000 volunteers, 3,500 runners, and then you have everybody else, 3,500 to 4,500 people. In retrospect, you know, out of 150,000, yeah, it's a small amount, but it moves a lot. That amount of people is very energetic, and there's a lot of passion behind what's going on that morning. It's nothing but positive. There's nothing negative about a road race in general.
Or a boat show.
You know, or a boat show, or a film
Azalea
festival. Like, you're talking about everything that's going on in our world today, and we're talking about the most positive events that there are. You know, and so this is our opportunity. Without events, our quality of life just isn't there. You know, just like we said at the beginning. One of the speakers said, our events make us who we are. When you go to Boston, you think of the Boston Marathon. You think about how they overcame the bombing. I mean, and I talked to Dave after that, and he almost quit race directing, but he did it for Martin, who died in that race. And So it just gives us a platform, not just my race, but these other events too. And so I would like to see more engagement. I like to see more people, not just in my race, but the other successful races in town too, get more involved and get our community of 150,000 plus more involved in the events instead of looking at it as an inconvenience, looking at it as an opportunity.
Amen.
Well, I think mine's pretty easy. We'd like to see the tax incentive reinstated in North Carolina. You know, and I'll sort of share how that's relevant. I mean, the film industry is traded sector employment. Highly skilled workers, premium wages, creates 6 additional jobs. You know, hardware stores, paint stores. I mean, the ripple effect in the economy is amazing. It also enhances all of our events, not just because I run a film festival, right? But when the marathon runs past production and there are, you know, Hollywood stars, trailers there, it enhances that marathon, right? When the Azalea Festival can bring in, when the Azalea Festival can bring in 5 bigger stars because they happen to be in Wilmington, that, you know, adds to the impact that the Azalea Festival can have. And the same for the boat show. If we can have 5 boats that were in Jaws and 5 other films at the boat show, then all of a sudden, wow, right? You all of a sudden have that wow experience. So I truly believe that the most important thing we can do for all of our events, for the arts community, for the economic vitality of our region, is to push as hard as we can to reinstate the tax incentive. We have one of the greatest facilities in the world in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's not going anywhere. Screen Gems has made a long-term commitment to Wilmington, North Carolina. We have the 2nd largest water tank in the world. And that's incredible, right? We have these assets sitting here right in our neighborhood. And for me, obviously, that is the #1 priority. And we're going to work really hard to convince our legislature to bring back the incentive.
Jackie?
Oh, good. For me, I think the most critical thing, I need the word yes. In my business and our businesses, we run across, oh no, you can't shut down Nut Street. Oh no, you can't do this. Oh no, you can't do that. I need to hear yes more often, just because for us to continue to grow, I would love someone to say, oh, have you thought about this? We are willing to help you. Have you thought about, we've got docks, we can help, you know, build more docks over here. I mean, I need just ideas and people in this community who also have vision and to help us. And the other thing I really need, because we're only in our 3rd year, last year was a fabulous year with the hurricane. Thank you so much, Wilmington. That was really, really fun for us. We had to shut down on Sunday, but I will tell you, I was blown away by the show. It was so crowded and fabulous Friday and Saturday, so it was a tremendous positive outcome for us. But I need money. I need sponsors who are willing to give me whatever, 5, 10, whatever it is, so that I can continue to grow the show and market it. We are not the publicly held huge corporation Informa that has the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, the Monaco Super Yacht Show, and all these others where huge, deep pockets. So it will take really everyone in this room and beyond to get us the seed money to keep growing, because we're only in our 3rd year. So if there's anyone out there who would be willing to talk to me, I'm more than happy to tell you the benefits of partnering with us. And that's my pitch, and thank you.
Let's please have a round of applause for all of our panel.